first of the Junior League of Summits three-part series on mental health during these unprecedented times. Tonight's topic is how to use mindfulness and acceptance-based strategies to help manage your uncertainty, anxiety, and sadness during COVID. We ask that during the presentation, you keep yourself on mute and type your questions in the chat box, kind of like down below. It's on the bottom toolbar. We're going to be addressing the questions at the end of Elise's presentation. So now I'd like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Elise DeMarco. She is a clinical psychologist specializing in working with stressed moms. She received a BA from Yale University and a PhD from Rutgers. She has received extensive training in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and is a diplomat of the Academy of Cognitive Therapy. So go ahead, Elise, please take it away.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much. Thanks to Junior League for having me today. I'm excited to talk to you guys about mental health during COVID. Obviously, there's a lot to say about mental health during COVID, and I can only cover a fraction of it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to be giving 3 different talks. So one today, one 2 weeks from now, Wednesday at 8, and one 2 weeks from then, Wednesday at 8 as well. Today's talk is going to focus on mindfulness and acceptance-based strategies, just to kind of help us manage not only uncertainty, anxiety, and sadness, but all of the negative emotions that we're all feeling pretty much all day, every day these days. Let's see, here we go. Okay, a little bit about me. Actually, most of this was said. I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialize in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. I wrote a book called Mom Brain, which is out next year, which is basically about CBT for moms of young kids. And my training you heard about already. I want to start the talk by emphasizing that these are not normal times. I know you all know this, but I'm saying this because a lot of the people that I work with seem to be expecting themselves to feel like they normally do and are very frustrated that they don't. So they'll come, to my virtual office and say, gosh, I'm waking up sad and anxious. I'm feeling this way all day. Maybe they're, frustrated with their partners. Maybe they're frustrated with their kids. Maybe they're frustrated with themselves because they don't have the patience that they normally do. And they'll say, I got to start feeling better. I got to start feeling better. I got to start feeling better for myself and for my kids. And what I've been emphasizing to them, and will emphasize to you as well, is that things like sadness, anger, resentment, anxiety, and so forth, those are all to be expected now, because we're in unprecedented times and under unprecedented amounts of stress. So the issue can't be, how do I feel good right now? How do I feel happy again? How do I feel, chill again? The issue has to be, all right, I'm gonna have these feelings. How can I manage them most effectively, right? How can I respond to them most effectively? And that's really what I've been focusing on myself and in my, my work with my patients. One very effective way of responding to negative emotions of all varieties is using mindfulness strategies. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. I want to just start out defining mindfulness. And I want to say that mindfulness is not just deep breathing. We use a lot of it in CBT, and I find that when I present it to people, they'll often think it's deep breathing or somehow like achieving a Zen state or getting your mind to go blank. These things can fall under the umbrella of mindfulness, but mindfulness is far more general than that. As you can see, the definition we generally give for mindfulness in CBT is that it's any activity that allows you to focus on one thing, present moment, without judging yourself or judging the moment, and without trying to change anything. And so, under that definition, many, many things apply, right? Certainly deep breathing is mindfulness if you can focus on your breath coming in and out. You can mindfully brush your teeth, where you focus on the way the bristles feel on your teeth. You can take a mindful nature walk, where you go out and decide that you're going to focus on the sounds of the birds chirping, or focus on the different colors of flowers you see. You can also choose to mindfully focus on your thoughts and feelings. We'll be talking a lot about that, but purposely kind of focusing yourself in the moment on what you're feeling and what you're thinking. So there's lots of things that qualify as mindfulness. I'm going to talk about 3 different uses of mindfulness today, 3 things that I think will help you during this tricky time. One of which is mindfulness for just a quick refresh during the day. One of which is mindfulness for emotional acceptance, for helping you to accept all the negative emotions that are coming on. And one of which is using mindfulness to keep tabs on your emotions during the day. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is mindfulness for just a quick refresh as you're going about your day. And here's where deep breathing can be very helpful. I'm going to give you an example from my own day to illustrate how mindfulness for a quick refresh can be really useful. So like probably many of you, I am homeschooling my kids, which would not be my first choice. I've been working a lot with my kindergartner, and one of the things that drives me really crazy is that as he's watching videos on his iPad, he can't stop messing with the iPad. So we'll be watching something and then he like moves the volume up and down and then makes the screen bigger or smaller. And then it's like touching the case on the outside of the iPad. And initially when we started doing the homeschooling, I was getting really frustrated. And every time he would do this, I would respond right away. I'd be like, stop that. Or I'd sort of, move his hand away from the screen or, say something like, pay attention. But what I found over time was that what I was doing was just making things far worse, right? Because here, my son was only doing a really quickie touch of a volume button, but then I was making it far worse by, not yelling at him, but, chiding him, and then he'd respond to me, and then we'd miss half the video, and then we'd have to go back. And I realized that what I was doing was completely counterproductive, when in reality, if I could just see him touch that volume button, take a beat, and move on, I could avoid all of the other stuff that happened, right? So here's where I decided, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. When I sit down at this iPad for the what seems like millionth day, and we start watching these videos and he starts pressing stuff and I start noticing myself getting tense, which for me, the clearest sign is my shoulders kind of go up to my ears, I'm going to take a beat. I am just gonna pause and I'm going to breathe. That's it. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Just when I notice the tension, instead of immediately going to him and telling him to cut it out or whatever, I'm just going to take a second to take a beat. And I have to tell you that it really helps me because, again, the moment is annoying enough, right? It's annoying enough that we have to do this. It's annoying enough that my son is messing with the screen. But if I'm yelling at him and he's responding to me, the moment gets a million times worse. And I find if I can just take a second and take a deep breath or two or three, I can avoid the moment getting worse. And that's really what I've been telling people to do over the course of their day when they find that these things are coming up, and they're coming up a lot. What I recommend that you do is try to figure out what your own signals are that tell you that you are starting to get fed up or tense, right? Again, for me, it's the shoulders. For you, it might be that. It might be other kinds of muscle tension. It could be a clenched jaw. Maybe you grind your teeth. Maybe your face flushes. There's lots of different cues that different people have. But what I recommend is you try to familiarize yourself with that so that when that happens, and also familiarize yourself with the situations in which it happens, like me with the iPad videos. And once it happens, just take a beat. It could be to breathe. It could be to count to 10 or to 20 or 30. Some people like doing that. It could be to let some song lyrics run through your head for a couple of minutes, right? It can be anything that helps to sort of anchor you to something different in the moment just long enough that you can make the moment pass and keep it from getting worse. I want to say a brief thing about breathing as well. As I said, breathing is my thing, more like when my son messes with the iPad, I take a few deep breaths. You want to make sure that you're doing what we call diaphragmatic breathing, right? So that means breathing from your diaphragm. A quick way to know if you're doing that or not is if you put one hand on your chest and one hand on your diaphragm and you breathe. If the hand on your diaphragm is going up and down, you're good. That's what you want to do. If the hand on your chest is going up and down, you're breathing in too shallow a fashion, and you really want to try to breathe from your diaphragm. That's what we want to aim towards. So this is just a way to take a beat, because I think we are all having these micro moments throughout the day of frustration. And if we can do something to make them not get any worse, I think it's worth a try. The second use of mindfulness is mindfulness for emotional acceptance. And this is going to kind of harken back to what I was talking about in the first slide. It's okay that we're not okay right now. We can't be, right? Because so many of the things that we are thinking about and worrying about are accurate, right? There's so much uncertainty. We're under so much stress. We can't expect ourselves to be able to be, you know, the chill people we normally are, or the types of people we normally are. Like I said to you guys before, one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from my patients is intolerance of these bad feelings. I want them to stop, make them go away. I want them to stop. I don't want to feel crummy for, the 7th straight week. What ends up happening with a lot of these people is that they'll have a bad feeling, any kind will do, resentment, anger, sadness, uncertainty, whatever. And then they will start judging themselves for feeling that way. Oh gosh, again, I'm anxious again, I'm stressed again, I'm angry again. And then often what will happen is they'll start to pressure themselves to feel better. I got to snap out of this. I got to feel better. Why am I still anxious? I shouldn't still be anxious. Like, how can I fix this? What can I do? This isn't good for my kids. This isn't good for me, and so on and so forth. So essentially what's happening is they're taking an already crummy situation, they're feeling, say, anxious, and layering on top of it negative judgment of themselves for feeling that way and pressure on themselves to not feel that way. And by the way, it's really hard to not feel these feelings now, right? We can put all the pressure on ourselves we want, but circumstances are such that we are going to feel this way, whether we want to or not. So the way that I see it is you've got to treat yourself with compassion, and you can't try to control the bad feelings. You've got instead to focus on, okay, these feelings are here, and let them be here. Now, let me pause for a sec before I give you an exercise that'll help you do this, and say that this isn't about resignation. This isn't about saying, all right, well, I guess I'm anxious forever now. I guess I should resign myself to feeling sad always. This isn't even about necessarily feeling sad 5 minutes from now or 5 hours from now. It's just about letting yourself be where you are in the moment. That's so critical, right? Again, being compassionate towards yourself and not trying to control how you're feeling, pressure yourself to change things, or judge yourself. It's so critical. One of the exercises I recommend that can help you with this emotional acceptance task is what we call leaves on a stream in CBT. You may, if you have any background in mindfulness, you may have heard about this one. All leaves on a stream is it asks you to either close your eyes or just in your mind's eye, visualize your thoughts and feelings as leaves on a stream. So think of yourself as you're thinking about something, writing that thought in your mind's eye, you're writing that thought on a leaf. If you have a feeling, you're writing that feeling on a leaf, and you're letting it go. Maybe it keeps coming back around. Maybe the leaf sticks there, doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't matter what the leaves do. The point is that you're not trying to do anything to mess with the leaves. You're an observer of them. Oh, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. You're just letting them be where they are. And it's a really good way when you're in a bad space during this to just let yourself be in that bad space.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing some.
If we can have everybody go on mute, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, we're good to continue. Okay. So anyway, the leaves on a stream exercise is a really good way for us to be able to reach that point of acceptance. You can use another visualization if you want, boxes on a conveyor belt, clouds going up in the sky, bubbles, it doesn't matter what it is. The point is that, again, you're able to kind of view your emotions and your thoughts as an observer of them and as an acceptor of them, right? And not judging yourself for them. I think this is so critical. I do want to say one more thing about this, which is like sometimes I'll teach someone this and they'll come back to me and say, hey, you know what? I tried that mindfulness thing when I was anxious, and I didn't feel any less anxious when it was done. It didn't work. I didn't feel less anxious. The goal is not to make the emotion go away, right? The goal is just to approach the emotion with acceptance and with compassion. Again, so that you don't make it worse, right? So remember, you're not going to come out of this feeling like a mess. I'm just hoping that it helps you to keep things from getting worse. Okay, so the last use of mindfulness I'm going to talk about today is to use it to keep tabs on our emotions. So this is where you purposely, mindfully check in with yourself periodically during the day to see how you're doing. As you've probably surmised, this is using mindfulness in a more proactive way, right? You're using it purposefully throughout the day, as opposed to in a more reactive way, as is the case with the other two examples I gave you, right? Where you're feeling something and you're using mindfulness in response. There's a couple reasons why using mindfulness in a proactive way can be really helpful with difficult feelings and emotions. First of all, it ensures that we're making our mental health a priority, which is so critical. I can't emphasize this enough. we've got to look out for ourselves and our own mental health right now. And it's something that's very easily falls by the wayside with all we're doing during the day, every day now. But if we're checking in on ourselves periodically during the day, we are making sure that we are making our mental health a priority. It's critical. The second thing that proactive mindfulness helps us with is ensures that we don't end up with an adult style size meltdown. I'm sure many of you have been in a situation where you're going about your day, grievances are piling up, things are happening, and you're starting to feel, maybe you're stressed about something, and then you're angry about something, and then annoyed at your spouse, and then annoyed at your kids, and then sad, and then worried. And all these things build up during the day. You get to the end of the day, something happens, maybe something really small, and all of a sudden the floodgates open, right? It's like one of those Real Housewives, like flipping a table kind of moments, right? And those are terrible, right? They're terrible. They feel terrible. They feel terrible for you. They feel terrible for people who happen to be in your orbit. They're terrible. The reason that happens, right, is because you're having all of these negative emotions during the day and you're not doing anything about them, right? You are not intervening at all to problem solve, to change your situation. So everything's building up and you're getting to the end of the day and you're exploding, right? But if instead you're attuned to your emotions throughout the day, you're ensuring that if you need to, you're taking steps to help yourself as the day is going along. And again, it is so important to do that. As far as how to do this and kind of different ways to work it, the people I work with usually like to do it one of two ways. To either tie mindful emotional check-ins to their meals. So like after breakfast, after lunch, after dinner, kind of just asking themselves, hey, how am I feeling right now? What's going on? And the other way is that people like to set alarms on their phones, right? So the alarms go off and people know, oh, okay, this is my time to mindfully check in with myself. The way I see it, it's like taking your emotional blood pressure, right? And you're taking it throughout the day. However you want to do it is fine. In terms of the manner in which you do it, I'm always in favor of writing stuff down. This is a big CBT thing. We're big fans of monitoring and recording. There are actually apps for this purpose that you can use that essentially are just drop-down menus full of emotions that you can click on to indicate which emotions you're feeling. One of these apps is called the T2 Mood Tracker, which is available for free from the VA. Another that we use a lot in CBT is called Mood Notes, which was developed by some CBT practitioners out in California. Both of those are good. There's many other mood tracker apps. You can keep your mood tracking on your phone, or again, you can do it in your head as well. The people I work with tend to find it helpful, I think, to write it down, but you certainly don't have to. The point is that essentially you're just asking yourself, how am I feeling? How am I feeling now? And maybe you're scanning your body for all those signs we talked about before, like tension or teeth grinding or any of the things that indicate to you that you're stressed. So the goal is to know, right? To figure it out, to acknowledge your emotions, because once you have, you can start problem solving, right? So what do you do to problem solve? That is a very big question and a question that could take me many talks to answer. But one of the things I'm just going to recommend for you today, the main thing I'm going to recommend for you, is to draw up a coping list for yourself. Take a time when things are pretty even-keeled for you, as even-keeled as they're going to get right now in this crazy time, when your wits are kind of about you, when your family's not in your face, and try to think about all of the things that have helped you feel better, manage your emotions, etc., since this thing has been going on over the past 7 weeks, or even prior to that, right? And this varies very much by individual, and it may vary by situation or by emotion, right? Some things that obviously work for a lot of people: connecting with other people in a variety of ways, zoning in, exercising, taking what I call an adult timeout, which is essentially the same thing as a kid timeout, like feel like, all right, I've had enough. I've got to absent myself from the premises for a little while. Same thing as we make kids do. It honestly doesn't matter what it is, but I would make a list that has a lot of stuff on it. And again, maybe things that work for different emotions and for different situations. I want you to have it, because if you are in a space during your day where you're noticing that you're starting to have a hard time, you can just look at your phone and be like, all right, what can I try here? Whatever circumstances I'm in now, what are some of the things I can try? I put get creative here because I know that somebody is going to say, hey, this sounds like a great idea, but you know, I have 8 children under the age of 5, and I never have a second to myself. How can I possibly do any of these things? To you, I say, there are things you can do to help you cope. You just have to get really creative, right? You may have to involve your kids in it. It may be that you find one of those 7-minute workout apps and do a 7-minute workout while your kid is finishing up, you know, her math assignment. There are ways that you can do it and ways that you can get creative to at least give yourself a little chance to cope and to address your feelings. Even texting, right? So if there's people that you really, you know, rely on to help you and who are comforting, you can text them during the day without much of a problem, right? And I will say too, if you're texting during the day, are you the world's most mindful parent, employee, spouse, etc.? No. But are any of us at our most mindful right now? No, right? Because we're all, you know, working and parenting and being a spouse and being a family member and doing all these things at the same time. So you know what, you're going to be distracted anyway. It's okay if you're a little bit distracted. Do what it is you need to do to help yourself cope. So spend some time, make the coping list. And again, you'll find that some things work better with certain, you know, situations and emotions, and that's okay. But I want you to have it so that you've got that list ready to go. So I'm going to stop at this point because I wanted to leave a lot of time, and Tara wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. Thank you guys so much. And this is all my contact information. Certainly feel free to reach out to me anywhere, all over social media, etc. I would love to hear from you. And at this point, I will stop sharing my screen and start to answer some questions. Okay, great. Let's see. So Tara, should I just click on the chat? Will they come up there?
Yeah, so right now we don't have any questions in the chat, but we're a small enough group that feel free if people want to chime on in, and we'll just be conscious of the fact that every once in a while we might talk over one another. But I think in this situation is great. Vicki, love hearing from you that you love the idea of a coping list.
Yes.
Good one.
Yeah, any questions that anyone has, I'm happy to answer. It could also be beyond the bounds of what I talked about today too. If you have other just sort of like anxiety related questions, some of which obviously I'll talk about. So my topic for 2 weeks from now is how to care for yourself. And then my topic, starting your own coping list. And my topic for 4 weeks from now is about managing your expectations around COVID. So know that I'll be talking about those things, but in the meantime, you know, anything is fair game. So I see 2 chats in here. And don't be shy, please ask.
Yeah, unmute, ask the questions. We're good to go.
I have a question. Oh, go
Yep, Rachel. I can sort of see you there.
Oh, sorry. I know. I don't know what's wrong with my screen. I don't normally look like that. But my question is, how much screen time is too much screen time right now? Because I feel like the coping method of zoning out in front of the TV has been very useful for me and my kids, but I do worry that we are way overboard.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually had something on my last slide about screen time, and I took it out because I know that it's such a huge issue. But I'm happy to answer, and we can kind of talk back and forth about it. You know, here's my thing. This has been my thing on screen time even prior to all of this. Is I'm a firm believer in strategic use of screen time, meaning it's okay to use screen time for your kids if you need it. And I talk about this in my book, which I wrote before this. So I'm a firm believer, and I'm a firm believer in it even more now. Because I think the truth is, look, what seems to be coming out now is that these screens don't seem to be damaging our kids in any, you know, irrevocable way. And for many of us, it is the only time to ourselves. And frankly, we need that if we're going to be decent parents. I feel that so strongly. I was working with someone one of my patients who said to me this week, one of my friends said that I'm parenting too much. And I was so offended, you know, by this, but I was like, yeah, I actually get that, because we cannot be parenting all day. Like, we can't. It's bad enough that we are teachers, that we are doing so much more parenting than we ever have before. just by virtue of the fact that our kids are not in school, right? So
Yeah.
I think you've got to use the screen time when you need it. I'll tell you the way that I've been navigating it, which has worked well, is that I sort of set, I and my husband, both of us, have set a schedule for our kids, loose schedule, not strict. But we do screen time at the end of the day. And it's plenty of screen time at the end of the day. It's not half an hour. But what's worked really well for that is that, A, my kids have something to kind of look forward to as it's coming, and they're not asking, every second from 8 a.m. on, when is the screens, when are the screens. But it also gives my husband and I a guaranteed large swath of time that's our own time. Now, again, my kids are 6 and 9. So obviously if you have younger kids, this might be harder. Although younger kids do nap, which is another good time, to take care of yourself and try to cope a little bit. But I think it's worked very well. And I wouldn't be unduly concerned about screens, because the truth is your kids need it too, right? I mean, our kids need to chill out too. And this is so much for our kids. So in the same way that if we watch, some TV and feel better, like that's true of our kids too.
Yeah.
They need this also. So I as I said, I was a firm believer in strategic screen use before this, and I really am now. And like I said, I think the way to make yourself feel better potentially is just to set the same time for it every day, as long as you need, but setting the same time, because then it might be a little easier just for you to set your own mind that when you'll have that time, and they know when they'll have it too.
Thanks.
Sure.
Lots of questions about sleep here. So
Yes.
Questions on any tips for falling asleep, and then also the question about any tips of getting motivated in the morning. So we've got sleeping and morning motivation.
Yeah, really good questions. So sleeping has been a challenge for a lot of people during this time, not surprisingly, right? Because there's so much on our mind. And for most of us, when we go to sleep is the first chance we have to just unwind, right? It's the first chance we have when no one's on top of us, when work is not asking things, from us, when our kids are not asking. And so of course, that's when our mind is free to think about all these scary things, right? I'm going to give you a couple of good tips. And by the way, these are not just COVID sleeping tips. These are just good general sleeping tips. CBTI, which is CBT for insomnia, is a great treatment. And by the way, if you're really struggling, I encourage you to reach out. There's a lot of online CBTI programs that you can do. One, I believe that's through the VA. You can't go wrong whenever you do stuff through the VA. So I would look into that. And you can actually put yourself through a course of CBTI. It's pretty quick and works really well. But I'm going to give you some tips from that to help you. The first thing you really need to do is you need to give yourself, I would say, at least an hour before bed where you are powered down. And when I say powered down, I mean, put the phone away, do not watch the news, do not go on social media, power down for an hour and do something mindless that is diverting, right? So for me, I told you guys it's TV for me. I watch old episodes of 30 Rock or Parks and Recreation basically every night, and Schitt's Creek as well. But whatever it is for you, it has to be where you've got minimal input from all the craziness. You need that time to wind down. You need to, because if you're, watching CNN up until the minute you go to bed, or like some people I work with, watching CNN in bed or scrolling Twitter and Instagram in bed, forget about it, right? It's like you're shining a flashlight on yourself until you try to close your eyes. So number one, I recommend that. Number two, what I recommend is try, even though we don't have schedules now, I'm really big into schedules. You guys will hear me talk a lot more about this 2 weeks from now. But one of the things that's really critical with sleep is that you keep the same sleep schedule every day. Go to bed the same time, wake up the same time. Now, I know people hate this. They want to sleep in on the weekends, especially now when they don't have schooling to do. But I'm telling you, as far as what you can do for yourself for sleep, this is one of the most important things you can do. Regular time to sleep, regular time to wake up. Really important. Back to the point I was making before about powering down. I think once you get into bed, please don't take your cell phones to bed with you. I urge you, I cannot urge you enough. Put them in another room, or if you really need them in your room, like put them where it's very difficult for you to reach them. Everyone says, no, I need my alarm. Just like you must have an old-fashioned alarm around your house somewhere. Like use your old-fashioned alarm, or find an old phone and use the alarm on that. The phones have a way, even if they're not on, being right next to you psychologically is no good for sleep, right? Because you know in your head, oh, a CNN alert could come up, or I could hear bad news from someone, or you know that it's there, and I think it makes it really difficult to sleep. That's another tip I have. The last tip I'll go with, again, is another, these are all good tips generally speaking, and especially now. If you find yourself up in the middle of the night, which many of us do, if you're up for more than 15 or 20 minutes, get out of bed. I say this because one of the problems that we can run into during times of prolonged sleep difficulty, as many people are having right now, is that if we're awake in bed a lot, our brain starts to associate bed with wakefulness. We don't want that, right? We don't want to get into bed and have our brain be like, oh, it's party time, right? So one of the things that we can do to prevent that is, if it's been more than 15 to 20 minutes, get out of bed, go someplace else. If you can, if you have the luxury of having a guest room or a family room or whatever, go to another room and do something mindless, not on your phone. Maybe you're reading a novel that you have lying around. Maybe you're reading, back issues of Us Weekly, whatever it is. Do something mindless until you feel tired again. And at that point, get back into bed. You'll really do yourself a service doing that. And I know people hate that. They say, oh, it's cold, I don't want to get into bed, and all this kind of stuff. But I promise you, in the longer term, it's really going to help you sleep better in bed. So that was a lot. So I'll that'll be the end of my sleep bit for now. But if people have additional questions about sleep, please ask me. I just saw that there's more questions coming in. This is a great question. There's a constant feeling during this time when you're doing so much to feel like you're failing because you're not able to give 150% to your spouse, kids, and work. Is this normal? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. This is so normal. And in fact, what I'm going to talk about a month from now is expectations, is this issue. But I'll give you kind of a sneak preview to say, this is totally normal because and by the way, unfortunately, I think this is true for us even in non-COVID times, right? Where we feel like we're supposed to be all things to all people at all times. And when we can't, we feel like we're failing. I think it's even worse now because we are now teachers as well. And we are now full-time caretakers as well, right? So we've got even more on our plates than we had already. And listen, none of us is going to do anything 100% right now. Forget about 150%. Forget about 100%. As far as I'm concerned, if you're doing like 40%, like that's a good day. And I say that not even in a humorous way, honestly, because we can't possibly be expected to perform at capacity when we are totally overwhelmed. We can't. This is another issue. I'm so glad to get that question because this is an issue. I work with a lot of moms, and this is an issue that comes up again and again and again. With screen time too, a lot of moms saying, I'm failing because I'm letting my kids watch screens. Man, you've got to do what you can do to survive right now. I mean, we are all in survival mode, truly. And that means giving yourself an allowance, lots of allowances for not being the best at anything. And this includes your job if you're working, this includes your job as parent, as teacher, as spouse, as child, as you name it, like all of it. We have to be willing to accept that. And again, it goes along with the self-compassion that I was talking about before, right? That it's so critical that we're compassionate towards ourselves now because things are hard enough without us judging ourselves on top of it. Okay, let's see. I find it hard to wind up in the morning, hard to get going. Yes, mornings are really hard, right? Because for a lot of reasons. It's hard to rouse kids, right? They know there's no quote real school, so they know they don't have to rush out the door to meet the bus or get to go walk. It's also hard because frankly, we're all waking up every morning and thinking, oh my gosh, this is still happening, right? Everyone was joking at the beginning that it feels like Groundhog Day, but in truth it does, right? And the more days that pass, the more days we're like, seriously? It's like, and you wake up and you're smacked with that every morning. We all are, right? So it is hard to rouse yourself. What I would say is, I think it can help to set for yourself something you're looking forward to in the morning. And by the way, to maybe do this for your kids too. So for you, it may be like, you know what? I'm going to go on Amazon and I'm going to buy that gazillion-dollar coffee. I am going to make myself that gazillion coffee morning. And it's going to be something that I can wake up and look forward to. I happen to have that with tea. And I've started like a ritual where I like sit and drink my tea for a little while in the morning, which I never did when my kids were in school because I was always like rushing to get them dressed and stuff. And I look forward to that. This may seem silly and inconsequential, but it can make a big difference if you set something for yourself in the morning that you're looking forward to. And I'd actually recommend, if you can, do that for your kids as well. Obviously, it depends on their age, but like, you know, like now that the weather's nice, you can say, all right, you guys, you know, when you wake up, you can go play football for a little while. I mean, obviously, you know your kid and you know what their, you know, what their particular incentives are, and you use them accordingly. But I would set that up for them as well. And you can also incentivize them by saying, hey guys, if you're up by whatever time in the morning, you will get 15 extra minutes on your iPad, or, you know, whatever it is, you can kind of incentivize them. I think that's what it's about. It's about incentivizing them and yourself to get up and get moving. It's hard. There's no question it's hard. I'll say, just generally speaking, as a preview of 2 weeks from now, trying to set loose schedules, super helpful, super helpful. I'll talk more about that. Okay, let's see. For those of us who live alone, how do you reduce the feelings of isolation when you don't have family in the area? Yeah, this is so hard. And I think it's hard too, because the virtual contact doesn't feel the same. I think it feels like something, but I don't know that it really feels the same for people. One of the things that some of my patients have found helpful, who live alone, you know, who for various reasons, has been just trying to get out as much as possible and take walks. Now, again, that partly depends, I guess, on your neighborhood and whether it's feasible to get that, you know, 6 feet of distance from people. But I think it helps just to see other people in the flesh, IRL, as they say, right? Even if they're not your loved ones, I think it helps to make you feel just kind of connected with something bigger than yourself and a wider community. I also think setting up regular check-ins with people who are meaningful to you is helpful as well. Like maybe saying, all right, I have this best friend, and we, you know, I actually working with someone who has a very best friend from college who lives across the country, and they speak the same time every day. So they came up with a time. It had to be very specific because she's on the East Coast and the friend's on the West Coast, but they have a specific time where they talk every day. And it's been actually really great for my patient because she looks forward to that and she counts on that. And she knows that during the day, when things come up that she wants to talk about, she knows she's going to have that time to talk about it, and have that time to have that connection. So I think that's really helpful too. I'm also personally a fan of like going on your phone and like looking at videos and pictures of the people you love. I think that's great because I think it reminds you of times that were simpler and easier, and lets you see the faces of the people that mean a lot to you. And hopefully encourages you to know that like you'll get back there again. But it's hard. I mean, it's very hard, right? Because we are all stuck in our homes. Okay, let's see. Yes, this is a great point. Someone said, I find that doing meditation and really focusing on deep breathing allows me to fall back to sleep more easily. Yes. So another plug for mindfulness too is using it. And I should have said this actually when I was talking about that wind down time before bed, a great time to use mindfulness. And there's a million apps now that let you do mindfulness really easily. Things like Calm, I'm sure you guys have heard of, or Headspace. Great apps, really effective. And in fact, all of them have like sleep, like a sleep module that has things you can listen to as you're trying to fall asleep. That's a great point. Okay, let's see. Oh yes, okay. I struggle to get my kids to help out with the house. Add the title cleaning lady to my job description. Yes, yes, it is so hard, right? Because our kids are just leaving everything everywhere, leaving food everywhere, and so on. Again, I kind of recommend, if you can, to try to set up a little bit of like an incentive system. Like, okay, we're going to put you, depending on how many kids you have, we're going to put you on dishes. We're going to put you on taking the laundry out of the hamper. We're going to put you on cleaning up the shoes. That's my kids' thing, but there's like shoes all over my house, caked in mud. We're going to put you in charge of shoes, and so on. And when you do this, you will earn blank, right? Now, easier for younger kids, I think, than for teenagers, right? Because teenagers, it's like, what can you possibly give them? They're kind of too cool for you. But I think even for that, like even there's things that you can incentivize your teenagers with. And sometimes, this is going to sound really funny, but sometimes the incentive can actually be you or, the other parent to say, okay, this is great. I'm gonna spend some time playing sorry with you. If you are good throughout the day, and if you clean up your shoes, play a game of Sorry before bed, stay up a little late and play a game of Sorry. So things like that can also really go a long way. I will say we've been doing this with my kids, totally. We've been like incentivizing them. I'll share it with you guys our big incentive, which is we happen to all have Fitbits, and we are incentivizing them for steps. As I told you guys, we do screen time at the end of the day, and particularly for my little one, it can be a challenge to get him out. And we say, you've got to earn X amount of steps to earn screen time. Works like a charm. Kid wants screen time, right? So he's got this Fitbit and he earns the steps. Obviously, when it's rainy, we'll waive that a little bit, but it's been a great incentive system. So get creative. See if you can incentivize them. Okay, let's see. I think it will be several months at a minimum before there's a new normal, for sure, whatever that may be. How do you suggest putting that into a healthy mental framework? This is so hard. My kids are 11 and 13 with schools closed and summer camp and plans up in the air. I'm very anxious and sad for my kids. Oh yes, I understand this 1,000%. I don't know how many of you were on, we were chatting a little bit before. My son is in his last year in his school. He's in 3rd grade and he's supposed to graduate. Now it's only 3rd grade, right? But he's been looking forward to this since kindergarten and he's crushed, right? And he loves his summer camp and he's crushed at the idea. He doesn't even know he might not be able to go. I haven't told him that. I think the best thing you can do, honestly, with this is be genuine with your kids about the situation and about your own feelings. There's a line between over emoting in front of your kids so much that you scare them, which you don't want, right? You don't want your kids to panic if you're, heaving and sobbing, like you don't want your kids around. On the other hand, though, it can be really helpful for kids to see how we're feeling, right? Because that normalizes it for them. That shows them, yeah, you know what, like this isn't just me and this isn't me overreacting, like this is hard. And quite honestly, I think that's your best approach with stuff like this, right? With the devastation that, by the way, we all feel. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the last day I walked my sons to school, I cried on the way home. I'm glad they didn't see that, but I think you want to share with them how disappointing this is for you, how much you know how disappointing this is for them, how it's very uncertain, and that's troubling because you want to be able to tell them they can go to camp and you can't tell them that, right? You want to be able to validate all of their feelings for them. And then I think at the same time, assure them that you're still going to be here and you're going to be here to help them and help, make the summer as fun as it possibly can be. And you can say, I already have plans and I'm already thinking about what we can do. Assure them that yes, this is hard, that yes, they have every right to feel cheated of milestones and sad and worried and angry, that you feel the same way, and that you're also going to be there for them. And you're going to work to, again, help, make this summer, if it turns out there's no camp, as fun for them as possible. And then include them in the planning. All right, we're going to plan our summer. Like, what are we going to do? Let's throw in as many things from camp as we can. I mean, within reason. I don't expect, us to all be camp counselors too, but, involve them in the process and get them excited about alternative plans. That can help as well. And I think that's it. Right, Tara? Am I missing anything? Did I get all of them?
I think you got all of them. Thank you
good.
so much. This is exceptionally informative. I can tell you I've written down so many tips. I really, really appreciate this. If we have any last questions, if people want to either, thanks.
You're welcome.
I was going to say, if there's any last questions, don't hesitate to shout them out or write them in the chat box. But we're going to be back in 2 weeks, 8 o'clock, same time, same place. Well, you might be in a different place. Maybe it'll be a different couch. I mean, maybe it'll be a different.
Be here. Oh yeah, they may be. I think I'm going to be here. This is my best.
You have your setup perfect.
And you know what I wanted to say too, if you guys are planning to watch 2 weeks from now, feel free to shoot me an email if there's any topics you want me to address. We do have the topics set already, but I'm happy to, to address other issues and concerns if you have them. So so feel free to shoot me an email and let me know.
Do you want to throw your email into the chat just so people can,
sure.
can know that?
Will do.
Oh, great.
So I'll give you, I will give you, let's see.
Oh, and here we do have another question from Christy Ann. Do you have any books and articles that you recommend to read during this time for self-help?
Oh, and social media info, sure. Sorry guys, let me just finish this because I am bad at multitasking. So I'm giving you my email here and then my social media handle, which is Dr. CBT Mom, which is what on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So you can find me there. And I have a website too, which is, I'll give you guys that too. Dr. CB, sorry guys. Okay, here we go. All right, so that's my website. Again, that's my handle everywhere. So I'm sorry, the question was, do I have any resources to recommend? Was that the question?
Yep, books, articles to recommend during this time for self-help.
Sure. You know, I'll give you a couple of websites, honestly, that whose writing I really appreciate, who I feel like are giving good perspectives on just, you know, and by the way, this is, well, I should ask, by the way, is this general anxiety stuff? Is this parenting anxiety stuff? Parenting, okay, yes. So let me give you a couple of good websites that I really recommend. The first one is the New York Times parenting site. They revamped their parenting platform maybe about a year ago, but they have really good stuff, really informative pieces, and pieces that I find are not alarmist. And they feature a lot of really great experts. They're, you know, people who are sort of at the top of their field. So I highly recommend that. And if you follow them on social media, they'll blast you a couple of times a day with new articles, new things to read. I feel the same way about On Parenting by the Washington Post. On Parenting has more, well, they have some sort of like advice articles. They also have a lot of personal essays, which I find immensely validating, right? It's a lot of moms coming forward and kind of telling their particular stories, and then, you know, advice pieces as well. I highly recommend On Parenting, the Washington Post. I also very much like it's sort of more of a literary motherhood mag. It's called Motherwell. And Motherwell has pieces I've actually written for them. They have a lot of really good pieces about various experiences that moms are having. Right now they're focusing only on COVID. So it's like all COVID coverage, which can be exhausting. But again, another really good source of advice. I want to throw out actually just another name too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Emily Oster. She wrote a book called Crib Sheet, which came out, I think, last year, and a book called Expecting Better, which came out a few years ago. She's actually an economist at Brown and a parent, and she writes data-based parenting books, right? So she really looks at the data. She looks at studies with a fine-tooth comb and gives you the facts in a very friendly, humorous, non-alarmist way. She's a great person to follow. She has a newsletter as well, and if you subscribe, like I subscribe to it, and she blasts a couple times a week. She's a really good non-alarmist parent who has been presenting a lot of really good fact-based parenting pieces. You know, like early on, it was should my kid be allowed to have a play date, which of course now we know is no longer a thing. But throughout this, she's been posting on a variety of topics relating to parenting. She's Oster, O-S-T-E-R. I highly recommend her too. Oh, and resources for general anxiety. Yes, so I can give you a couple of, well, so first of all, I should say the mental health community has really been very proactive in coming up with resources. You know, Tara, I wonder, is there a way I can like get something up on the Junior League website or something? There's a source I'd like to point out that I don't have on the top of my head right now.
Absolutely. We'll put all the resources that you're mentioning on the website for sure. People will definitely want this.
Okay, great. So there's another resource that I have to look up the URL, but I'll give it to you, Tara, later. There's a group out on Long Island, a respected CBT research group that actually came up with free coping with COVID materials. Why is his name escaping me? I'll get it. Bill Sanderson is an anxiety expert out there, and he and his lab have basically come up with CBT-based coping information. So I will get the URL for that and make that available. It's great because it's CBT, so we know that it's research-based, we know that it's helpful, and it's geared specifically towards COVID. Then I can give you kind of some of my greatest hits, kind of CBT anxiety books. One is called the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Anxiety. I really like that one, and I think it's particularly useful now because, like I said to you guys, I'm really leaning on the mindfulness and acceptance right now, because as much as some of, say, the cognitive challenging is helpful, it's very hard to challenge our thoughts right now when many of them are quite rational, right? Many of our fears are very rational and our emotions are very rational. So I like the Mindfulness and Acceptance Workbook for Anxiety. The authors are Forsyth and Eifert. Forsyth I at least can spell, which is F-O-R-S-Y-T-H. I think Eifert is E-I-F-E-R-T. The second edition. Oh my gosh, yes, there we go. Well done. There it is. So I highly recommend that one. CBT one is called Mind Over Mood. I like it, although I have to say, I think a mindfulness and acceptance approach is best for this moment in time. So I'd be more inclined to tell you to go to the Forsyth and Eifert one for starters. I like that one too, because it's a general anxiety book. It doesn't focus specifically on just OCD or PTSD or whatever. It does talk about different diagnoses, but the strategies are broadly applicable to all, anxiety of all stripes. So I would check that one out. In addition to it, like I said, I'll make the new pamphlet available on the website. You guys can check out.
Great. Well, Elise, thank you so much for this evening. We really appreciate your time. I hope that everybody got some really great insights from this evening, and I really look forward to next week. I'm getting texts from people as well. Somebody said they've already ordered one of the books from Amazon. So great tips and great insights. So thank you. And we'll see everybody here in 2 weeks on May 20th. Just remember, it's a different code to get into the meeting, so have a look on the JLS website. But thanks again for spending your evening with us. We know sometimes
Thank you guys.
And
thank you for having me.
And we really appreciate it. Great stuff. Thank you guys.
Bye, everyone.